Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the CBC Wizdumb Hour, number 160 for December 7th, Tuesday, December 7th, 2021. I'm Steve Witchell in New Orleans.
What's up, Tony B, coming to you live from New Jersey.
Yes, sir.
It's happening.
Not much. I mean, lots.
Of course, everything's lots of stuff always happening, but I mean,
sure.
currently at this present second.
Well, I'm going to tell people that what's happening is we're live right now. It is a little after 7 Central Time, 8 p.m. Eastern. And if you're watching live, come on in and say hello. Tell us where you're from, and we will acknowledge your presence and existence on this planet.
Come on down.
And we are streaming live on the Cover Band Central Facebook page, in the Cover Band Central Facebook group, and on the Cover Band Central YouTube channel, which you should subscribe to. We put a link in the description here. Just click that link, click subscribe, so you get notified when we go live. And you can check out all the other videos there in the archives. That's
a lot of places to find us, Steve. That's good coverage.
A lot of places. And I think that's it for housekeeping. I had some reason, as soon as we go live, I got this fruit fly.
It's the Wizdumb Hour, fruit fly. He joins the,
He's got a name.
Facebook user flying around.
His name is Charles.
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 Like Freddie or Frank.
It should be an F word. You're right.
Yeah, like Freddie the fruit fly.
Freddie the fruit
fly. Not
fruit
you,
fly.
Freddie. I got a Freddie back here too.
I like him.
He's talking about something else. Stop.
He's doing a good job, that Freddie.
He is.
As well as Freddie the fruit fly, who is getting an overhead look at the Wizdumb Hour.
Like a fly on the wall, Steve, just like in the Beatles show.
Except it's a fly in the air. So
yeah,
so there's a bunch of people coming in. Make sure you come in and say hi in the comments. Say hello. Tell us where you're from.
Hola.
We will say hi back. So we do have a topic for today again, and I'll introduce it in a little bit. But first, we'll recap other stuff. So yes, you were just telling me before that you watched part 1 and 2 of Get Back. So let's hear it. What you got?
I did. So not to take up a lot of time with it, because we talked a lot about it last week.
Right.
But the things that struck me the most were that McCartney is so plugged in to the frequency of creation that he is just channeling all sorts of ideas the entire time. I mean, it's like you said, they're just coming to him rapid fire. He's sitting down. He's just making up Let It Be. Like you said, George Harrison comes in from the night before. He's like, I wrote this in my hotel room last night. As soon as McCartney latches on to something, Lennon is in lockstep with him, creating the harmony and coming up with the rhythm guitar part, like on the spot, So
yeah, amazing. Without even thinking like seriously about it. Like they're not like, oh, we got to write this song now. They're just goofing around.
Well, that's the thing that struck me also, is that there's no urgency. Like they know they have to get the stuff done, but they just show up and then they roll in, and then Ringo just hangs out while they talk about stuff. And then, as they just spontaneously create, there's no pressure, evident on them to do this. They're more concerned, like the manager passed away and there's no one guiding them. So they're not sure if they're approaching it correctly, but at the same time, they're coming up with these unbelievable ideas, and they're so in tune with each other from having played so many hours together that, like you said, they just had this intuition. And then the part that struck me too was the part where you said when George gets up and leaves and in essence quits the band on the spot there. And it's due to the fact that McCartney sees the vision of exactly the entire song, and then George is putting his parts to it, and then Paul's telling him, "No, don't play that. Play this. Go G to F to D." And he's giving him the chords, and he's telling, "This is what you should be playing." And you can see George getting frustrated because he's saying, like, "I want to contribute, and this is what I'm coming up with. Like, I'm not Eric Clapton. I'm not, this is George, and this is what I can offer." And Paul's telling him in a very polite way. He's not being like condescending to him or anything. He's just telling him it just doesn't work with the structure. But you can see that, McCartney, and he's even telling Ringo, don't play that beat there. Play this, upbeat thing, and only do a snare on every other beat, every other measure on the 3. And, Ringo takes into consideration and they come about it. But McCartney, he just, that's the thing that struck me the most. He just he's so plugged in, and he's so gifted with, being able to access that creative element, that he just comes up with the ideas, and he's done so many songs already that it's just a flow for him at that point. And he's trying to direct those guys to say, I already have the song done in my head. I can already hear the finished product. This is what you should be playing. And I could see why that would be frustrating for any musician in an original band because they want to contribute their creative portion to it and it's being
Yeah,
sequestered, you know,
yeah,
for the
and
greater good of the song.
they're just kids still at that point. You know, McCartney's like
They're in their
20,
20.
26, I think, in
Yeah.
there,
And I think
and
George is even younger than that. He's like 23 or 24.
yeah, they're around the same age, and
Mhm.
then Lennon's a couple years older, Ringo's a couple years older, but still 28. They're still kids, and yeah, like you said, they lost their managers, so now they're kind of just like kids with it when their parents are gone. You know, that's
But you can see the emotion too, like when George leaves, and then they have the first meeting at Ringo's castle, and it doesn't go well, and then they're back again, and they're saying, "Well, I don't know if he's coming back, or I don't know what's going to happen," And
right,
you see at point Ringo's laying with his head back, and McCartney too, and their eyes are all welling up with tears. You see Ringo wipe his eyes several times, like
yeah,
nonchalantly, like he's not bawling, crying, but they're really emotionally. Lennon is kind of aloof to it. I mean, he's concerned, but you can see that McCartney and Ringo are like genuinely really saddened by the fact that they may have lost their friend and band member.
right, yeah. Lennon's kind of in Yoko land. You know, he's
Yeah, exactly.
like,
But it's very cool though, and yeah, and Glenn Johns is there, and
right,
with the epic techniques that he used when he recorded Bonham, and you see how they're makeshifting, making a recording studio, in this warehouse, like bringing in, all kinds of mock stuff, and the one guy's like soldering wires together, like there's no
right,
mixer like in the back of your studio there behind you, there's nothing like that.
right,
It's a
right,
bunch of almost they look like jet plane control handles on the board. They're not faders. They're these big
yeah,
rotating like Frankenstein, like
yeah, and these
looks like
big
a
like
high voltage switch.
these huge knobs that are like
Yeah, 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 exactly. But very cool. I haven't seen the third part yet, so I'm looking forward to that. But it was very
Ray's here.
interesting.
We love Ray.
What's up, Ray?
What's up, Ray? Thanks for hanging out. Anybody else coming in new? Come on in and say hi. Tell us where you're from. We will acknowledge you. And we're just talking about Get Back right now. We talked about it a little bit last week,
Yeah,
and
but just
just
the whole element.
wrapping it because I saw it, but Tony hadn't seen it. But now
Yeah,
Tony has seen part 1 and 2. And when you see part 3, where they do the concert, it's so exciting to see it because they're playing these songs now as new songs. And
right.
these are
For the
songs
first
that
time.
we've known now for
Yeah,
decades. But when you see it, you have this visceral experience of them playing Get Back as a new song. And you get to feel what it's like for them for that song to be new, even though it's so old, and that was part of the joy. The biggest joy for me of that is coming in part 3, and it's after the rooftop concert. And you'll
okay.
know
So
what
don't tell me.
I'm not going to tell you, but you'll know immediately what I'm talking about when you see it.
But very cool though. Very a very insightful look into some real geniuses of our musical history,
Yeah,
creating some epic songs as if they were nothing. There's no pressure. There's not a big labor involved. I mean, they basically come up with the verse, the chorus. There's a guy transcribing lyrics as they're just singing stuff out so they can try to piece stuff together. And, he's telling them change this word instead of theirs. It should be, mine or, they're just like making subtle differences in what, you know, Jojo was a man at Tombstone, Arizona. And then he's writing it down and saying, okay, well, that
right,
rhymes, just really
right.
cool how the whole process. So
Yeah, it's very free, sort of
yeah,
just.
but
uh,
very inspiring too when you see it, to think
oh
that
yeah,
like, these guys are, they're all plugged in. I mean, of course they're the Beatles and like I said, they have thousands of hours of playing together, but it was
right.
just and then for them to play live after not having played so long too, must have been really exciting for them.
Right. It's a trip, man. I can't wait to see that. Williams in Virginia. Thanks for
William.
joining us, William. Um, and like I've been in that situation, like where George was, and I didn't quit, but I played in a band called Little Sister back in the early or
Yep.
late '80s, and the chief songwriter was Janet. She was the singer, the late Janet Rains,
Yeah, rest her
and
soul.
she would come in to rehearsals, and we rehearsed a lot. We, like at least like 3 times a week, 2 or 3 times a week, we rehearsed. And even if we didn't have a gig, we were still rehearsing and working on songs, working on new material. That was a big thing for her because this was an all original band.
Hmm.
Um, so and she always wanted to like working on new songs and then recording. That was a big deal for her. And I'm glad we did, because it really taught me how to work in the studio at a young age, and also gave me, material that now I still enjoy listening to. Tina's in Florida. What's up, Tina? Thanks for joining us.
Tina.
Um, but she would come in and say, play this bass part in this song, play
Right.
these notes.
Right.
And I definitely felt like, wait, I want to put my thing to it, but she was coming up with, she was an excellent musician, a piano player. So she would write on piano, and she would write like, sort of inverted chords, the bass is not the root, a
Right.
lot of
Right.
times. And so I would have to just kind of sit there and like try to learn what was in her head when she was writing the song. And it was arduous process. It really was, because it was like, it was her head, her ideas coming, and her trying to explain it to an entire band, to a keyboard player, guitar player, bass player, drummer, of
Right.
what she wanted to do. So that process was, it was laborious. It was, but what came out of it was fantastic. And then I did end up really kind of putting my own personality into it, just because I am me, and I'm going to play the way I play, and I'm going to make certain choices, certain creative choices. But for the most part, we would play songs live just like we recorded it, or as if
Sure.
we were
Sure.
recording. And that was another advantage of being in the studio. It's like you're really refining your parts, and then when you go and play them live, you've done it so many times
Oh
that
yeah.
it's just like you don't have to think about it. So I still have a lot of that material on cassette, and I've been meaning to transfer it to digital and put it out there, because there's a lot of people that were fans of her, and I would love for them to hear that stuff that's never really been released anywhere. So
Yeah, and like you said, when I was in Eye of the Storm, all original band, we put out 3 albums worth of material, and the same thing, we
right,
rehearsed
right,
3 nights a week, and we were together for 20 years, and it was the same situation where I can't play piano or guitar, or a fretted or strung instrument, but when we were playing the songs, I wouldn't say per se I was always the arranger, so I wouldn't tell
hmm
the bass player, "Hey, you should be playing this, this, and this." I would say, like, "Play that part you just played, but then play that other part and I would kinda help him create the part based on his own part, but just rearrange what he was already playing to make it work, or and then figure out the verse and the chorus. So we didn't have like a main songwriter, we would just roll
okay,
tape and just start jamming. And then
right,
whatever came,
kind of
whatever.
like the Beatles are doing in the room. Yeah,
Correct, but we didn't have a show, any pressure on us. We would just have rehearsal and say, "Okay, we're just gonna jam because we need material for a new album." And if it took a month or it took 6 months, it really didn't matter. We were just having fun, and we were already gigging our previous material. So as we finished new songs, we would introduce them as, "Hey, this is a new song that's coming out, on our new album." And then we would like litmus test it against the audience. But the fun part was that we were writing, in a progressive hard rock vein. So there was no constraint. Like whatever you came up with was what we played. If it was a
right,
King Crimson part into a Pearl Jam part into a Zeppelin part, and it worked and it sounded cool, we just went with it. There was no structure to say, hey, it needs to resolve on this note. It was
right.
just stringing parts together. So it was a lot of fun. And like I said, privileged and blessed to be able to have been a part of that outside of the cover bands that I played and, to be able to create original music, which was still a very exciting time.
Right. See, we still talk, even though it's Cover Band Central, we still talk about original stuff,
We do,
because
but back
there wouldn't be covers without originals.
That's right, but back to covers. So I played Friday night,
Okay.
after Last Wisdom at Tin Barn Brewery. 350 people,
Nice.
big place, and I have a video, I'll get it uploaded somehow, but I took a drum cam from behind me, and they did the tree lighting ceremony, and we played Father Christmas by the Kinks.
Okay.
And at the end of the song, it's probably 15 seconds of stadium-like roar applause.
Nice.
Which was just fantastic, and I got a quick picture here, I'll show you the stage setup, let's see if I can hold it up and you can get a glimpse of that.
Okay. Hold it still. Hold it still. Yeah, it's a side view, huh? Is it a side view
No, it's
or front view?
straight on here, look.
Front view.
This is a better picture maybe like that.
Okay. Oh, there you go. Yeah, kit looks great.
Got my Christmas
Look at
coat.
you, man. Looking all snazzy.
Got my Christmas coat on. We're all set, man. Got the Christmas lights going.
I like it.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. Really good.
Yeah, definitely want to see some video. Get
And the
that
great thing
uploaded.
about it was, like, the band is so energetic, right? And again, I'm fortunate again to play with Jimmy, who I've played with for 20 years on keyboards, but the rest of the guys in the band, the bass player and the guitar player and the rhythm guitar player and the singer, really good people, like, good energy. And at the end of the night, as the owner said, he goes, "Man," he goes, "I have 20 bands that play in here." He's like, "But for some reason, your guys' energy and our energy of this place somehow melds together," where he's like, we don't have 350 people here ever. In the summertime we have 200-300. He's like, but
Right.
not on a Friday night in the middle of winter. So it
Right.
was very exciting. So a lot to be said for that. Energy, right? We always talk about that, but it's
Sure.
really important.
Absolutely.
Good people find good people, and everyone had a great time. And again, no egos, no pressure, just fun.
Excellent. That's
Good
a
stuff.
perfect segue into my week
Yes.
because I got back playing this past week after not playing steadily or playing on Bourbon Street since July, and then because I had COVID and all that, so I got back and I played Wednesday, Thursday, and Wednesday. I was just feeling the whole night. I had a smile on my face. I was feeling so much joy of playing with those people
Yeah.
and just being on stage again. That feeling of that bass, like I could feel my bass,
Yeah.
and at first there was like really nobody, but we were just four guys on stage. It was just bass, drums, guitar, and lead vocal, and we were people that have known each other for years, and we were having fun. And before you know it, we packed that room, and it was a great night. We played 6 sets on Wednesday, which is 4.5 hours of music. Um, and yeah, I'm happy to be back. I'm happy to be. And it's Crazy Corner. It's like I've played Crazy Corner more than I played anywhere in my
Yeah. Your,
life.
your old haunt. For
Yeah,
sure. Yeah.
so it's so comfortable to just go back on that stage. It feels like home. And Thursday was great too. It wasn't as busy because there was a Saints home game Thursday night, so there were people, and they were playing the Cowboys, and so a lot of people from Dallas came into town the night before,
Yeah.
and we're hanging out. So we had a lot of Cowboy fans in the crowd, which is fine. They were all really cool. And but then Thursday they're actually at the game. It got crowded later once we were done, but we still had a good night. We still had a good amount of people there and had a lot of fun. The only thing was my body on Thursday, dude, when I was so freaking sore.
Yeah, because you haven't done it.
Yeah, like in muscles I'm using on stage that I hadn't used in a while. So I
Sure.
was feeling it on Thursday and then feeling it a little more on Friday. But
Did you
I'm
cramp up
really
at all or have any issues while you were playing?
no,
Just tired, right? I mean,
yeah,
just make
not even,
sure, like,
and not
you know
not while I was playing. While I was playing, I was fine. I was loaded with energy. I was feeling like I was just feeling a lot of joy. And
Nice.
I barely had to practice. I barely practiced before I went back, and I just fell right in. My hands just know what to do, and my
Muscle memory,
calluses
man,
have
yeah.
been my calluses are so built up now over the years that it's never going back to normal.
Right.
Um, so yeah, so I'm happy to, and I'm playing again tomorrow and Thursday, and then Saturday as well. I have to drive 3 hours west of here. Same band.
Right.
Um, uh, the guy
3
who's
3 hours away?
3 hours away. Yeah,
Wow. You guys sleeping over or are you driving back?
I'm not sure yet. I think we're getting a place.
Gotcha.
That's what was being attempted anyway. Um, but it's cool. It's Christmas time. Love being out.
Yeah, no doubt.
As does John from San Francisco. He says greetings.
Hey, John, greetings.
I don't know where your picture is. Oh, there it is. All right,
Yeah, it's right there.
looking good, buddy. So yeah, that's it. I'm happy to be playing again, and I'll be playing more as we go. But so should we get to our topic?
Let's get to the topic, Steve. Yeah, we're 22 minutes in. Let's start talking about the topic.
Okay. So sometimes I come up with a question and I post it in the group.
Yeah.
Other times other people come up with good questions. And I saw one when I first got up today. I saw one that was posted, and I was like, this is a great one for Wisdom Hour tonight. So we're going to.
Which I have no
We're,
idea what you're about to tell me either,
I know.
which is very exciting.
There's so much suspense.
Love living in suspense.
Should I put a countdown up? No.
No.
So we can chime in as we go. I guess we don't have to give our answers. There's a lot of responses there. I have not, as always, I have not looked through them. So we're going to all see them together
For the first time.
For the first time. But this is good, inspiring stuff, I think.
Cool.
Hopefully we have some inspiring answers. So this is the question. What's one piece of advice you'd give your younger self starting out in music? And this is from Christina Brisson, who is the #1 contributor in the Cover Band Central Facebook group. She is.
See, I eased into it so I didn't hurt your ears.
Yes, it's very loud. And she says she answers it as well. And she says, I tell myself not to take so long away from it to tend to other aspects of life. I could have done both. Without music, I'm not completely myself, and it feeds and sustains me like almost nothing else. And I'd say, like, I'm really happy that I never did that. I've never gone away from it.
Right.
I've there have been ebbs and flows, but I have not ever left it. So
likewise, I've never not played.
Right. So that's the advice she would give her younger self. But let's see what other members had to say. And Phil Rucci comes right off the bat and says, practice, practice, practice. Mm-hmm. So he would tell his younger self, practice more.
Okay.
And I would not tell my younger self that, because I practiced a lot.
Sure. And never too late to start practicing excessively.
Right. Yes. But that's not advice I would give my younger self, because my younger self already knew that somehow.
But you're not his younger self. So
no, I'm not his. I'm mine.
Exactly. You're yours.
But Vern Green says 2 things, actually. Do the things that you do not want to do. He says, I lived in Southern California, but did not ever want to go into Hollywood, but that is where the work was. Mm-hmm. And number 2 is focus a lot more on singing. A singing bass player is worth a lot more than a bass player that sings. That is damn true there, Vern. I get more work because I can sing than I would if I couldn't sing.
No doubt.
I still would say I'm a bass player that sings. I'm
not a singer that plays bass.
He's saying a singing bass player. Right.
Right.
Yeah. But I'm primarily a bass player that sings, but I'm still a singing bass player when I'm singing and playing bass.
Yes, you are. You certainly are. Unless you're not playing bass at the time when you're singing, then you just be a singer.
Right. But that doesn't usually happen.
Right.
All right. Albert Nobles says practice more and learn theory sooner. Also not something I would tell my younger self, because I did learn theory early. Yeah. Frank Greco says don't waste time on Facebook and pay the rent. So his younger self.
Good advice for anybody right there.
So his younger self didn't pay the rent, is what he's saying?
Yeah, and he should definitely stay off Facebook either. So 2 good things.
I'm
now hope he's practicing that.
I'm going to guess then when Frank was a younger self, first starting out, that there wasn't such a thing as Facebook.
Then he wouldn't tell his younger self that, Steve. You're assuming things. This is his answer. So let's just keep going.
It doesn't say how much younger self, too.
Correct.
Well, it says younger self starting out in music. So perhaps he started out a little later in life in music.
Potentially.
Yes. Larry Ferguson, don't play in a cover band more than a couple of years. What? You're saying that on Cover Band Central?
Well, listen, I can relate to that, because when I was in Eye of the Storm, we were all original and we played for a long time. The scene had changed, right? It used to, how Jersey was. It would be like covers heavy for 2, 3, 4 years. And all of a sudden, the original scene would be heavy for 2, 3, 4 years. Then it would flip back to cover, So
Right.
we got right on the cusp of the first wave and rode that for 3 or 4 years, with great success. And then all of a sudden, clubs weren't, original music wasn't such a thing anymore. So we actually made an alter ego band of the same members called Mr. Personality. And we did all covers, but we did all heavy covers. White Zombie, Soundgarden, Nine Inch Nails, a lot of industrial stuff, sequencers, and we played to a click, and it was a ton of fun. But I can
Right.
relate to what he's saying because after about 2 years of doing that, I can remember the guys being like, "We don't wanna do this anymore. We wanna go back to writing originals," you know? Like, we sense that it's gonna change again, but we're just it was a nice little break, but everyone missed writing, our own music.
Yeah. It all depends what you fancy, I
Correct.
suppose.
But I think you gotta
But
supplement both, right? Because if you're creatively engaged in something original, it's going to spill over into your cover band, you know?
right. But Larry's saying, don't play in a cover band for more than a couple of years. Don't make it your full time job. Move to a major music slash entertainment city. But see, I moved to a major music slash entertainment city and made it my full time job. So he's
Sure.
telling,
Depends on your goals. If he doesn't, maybe he
right,
wanted to pursue originals, you know?
right. He's saying, yeah, he's saying concentrate on songwriting and making insider connections. Don't spend a fortune on gear. Get the minimum you need to do the job. Spend the money to get the best people, players, and engineers, and keep making demos. Concentrate more on singing than playing. People take notice of great singers and harmonies more than anything. So he would tell his younger self a lot of things.
Yeah, it's good. I mean, he's learned a lot in his career, to be able to reflect on that.
Right.
Good
Glenn Eder
advice for anybody.
says, yep. Glenn Eder said, pick up vocal harmony sooner. That's what makes you stand out from the rest. It's true. You got to sing. Just
100%,
sing.
man. Bands with good vocals and harmonies definitely stand out from bands without. Even if the band
Absolutely.
without is more talented, musically.
Right. Right. And other people chimed in on agreeing with Glenn.
Mhm.
Brian Cunningham says, practice a lot more. Don't be afraid to audition. Play with more people. Play with people better than you. That's great advice.
Yes, that is great advice.
That's something that I've done throughout my career as well.
Yeah.
Not even on purpose. I didn't seek really consciously seek it out. I just ended up with people that were better than me, or
Mm,
or that I considered better than me.
right.
Um, and other people have chimed in on that conversation as well. Pedro Miguel says, spend more time practicing and less time procrastinating. And that one is still valid according to him.
Yes, I think it's a lot valid for a lot of people,
Yes. Ramon J. Mack says, learn as much as you can, grow some balls, and stop focusing on lame jobs. Rather, work on realizing your dream.
Yeah, good advice for
So,
anybody right there.
yeah. So think big and know that you can achieve magnificent things.
Yeah, jump in with both feet. He's saying don't just dabble.
Right. So Ben said to Christina, he said, I'd have the same advice for me. I was living in the city with great live music scene, and I put it all down to focus on grad school. Didn't pick it back up again for years. I still shake my head at young 20-something me at that decision. Yeah.
Hey, listen, you can't go backwards. You can only move forward from where you are today, right? So take that inspiration and knowledge and apply it today. It doesn't matter how old you are. You can, think about it. Even if I hadn't played an instrument in 10 years, but I used to be really good at it, if you really committed yourself to a solid year of practice,
Hmm.
you'd have blazing chops and you would be, better than you were then. It's just that commitment of time, and you could be 50 years old and do that, it doesn't matter. Within a couple of years, you can be at the top of your game. It's not like it's gonna take you 20 years to figure it out, even if I can remember teaching drums, and I had a woman come in, and she was probably in her mid to late 50s, and she wanted to learn how to play drums, never played drums before, and she wanted
Right.
to play Enter Sandman by Metallica, and that was her goal. And after 2 years, she realized that goal, and we recorded it at the lesson, and she played it, and she's a drummer, you know? So, it's never too late to start, you know? She had
Uh,
the talent, and she dedicated to practicing, and within 2 years' time, from never picking up sticks, she's able to play Enter Sandman, which isn't the most technically difficult song, but timing-wise, it's got a lot of elements in it, and it was a dream of hers, and she achieved it. So you're never too late to start doing something you love, you know?
You got to want it bad enough, and it has to be
Yeah,
non-negotiable.
right.
Non-negotiable. I am going to get this thing, or do this thing, or achieve this thing, or
Yeah.
have this experience. It has to be like nothing's going to stop me.
But it's
Um,
discipline too, Steven. Musicians aren't usually the most
sure,
disciplined group.
sure, but some can be very Very disciplined.
100%. Absolutely.
Justin Canner said he would tell his younger self to take lessons. And John Tinloy said he would learn vocal survival technique early on.
No, it's funny.
Survival.
I heard Eddie Vedder on an interview today on Sirius XM, was a little blurb, and he said that they asked him, "How do you prepare to sing in when you go to countries where it's like 110 degrees when you're on stage, 105 degrees on stage, you know?" And his answer, legit answer that he gave that someone else turned him on to was he rides an exercise bike in the sauna for an hour and sings the set
Ugh.
while riding a exercise bike in a sauna.
Ugh.
And the one guy wrote back, he said, "You must have a really big sauna to be able to ride your bicycle around in it." So obviously, he didn't realize it was like a stationary bike. But yeah, he said, cycle, because you're on stage, your adrenaline's up, and you're running around, you're pumped up. You're not sitting in a chair just spelting out tunes, and you're sweating. And he said, you're breathing in all that hot sauna air. But he said, after doing that, then by the time the tour came and they got to those locations, he was 100% like, no problem. It wasn't fatigued, didn't phase him in the least bit because he had prepared for it.
There you
Pretty
go.
interesting.
That's funny. I heard a replay of Eddie Vedder interview on Howard Stern yesterday, and it was like 3 hours. He didn't talk about the sauna bicycle,
Right.
but he talked about a lot of things. It was interesting. Cool cat.
Yeah.
Brian Taylor said, "My dad said, just play. Don't worry about money or fame. Don't care if you're in a wiener suit at the mall. Just play." Good advice.
It is, man. Play whenever you can.
Yeah, Donna says I guess one should never think that they're the best at truly anything. Always room to grow. Neil Peart took lessons much later in his career. Always grow, always evolve. And that's something, if you ever get a chance, even if you've been playing for decades, to study with somebody that you admire, you don't have to look at it as taking lessons, but it kind of is. But I always looked at it as I want to study with this person and, get some of their knowledge.
And when Neil studied with Freddie Gruber, he evolved, and it changed him stylistically as well. He thought and played differently than he did prior to studying with Freddie.
Right. Jay says, be more diligent in practicing improv skills in more styles in all the keys. That goes for drummers too, in every key.
Well, no, I would say with drummers, practice to a click, and then, play straight stuff, and then practice improvising over a click so you get your time rooted so it's internal, so that you can stretch out and do what you want, but still keep everybody together.
Right. Notice that too, and Get Back, no click, no metronome,
right?
Nothing.
No.
And they would like kind of screw up, just getting back to Get Back for a second. They would kind of screw up some, like some harmonies weren't necessarily dead on all the time, or the word was like kind of mumbled or something, but they just left it like
yeah, right.
That's good.
Move on is great. Sounds good. You know what I mean?
That's good.
And it's interesting. They would do a couple of takes, like you said, live, and listen back and be like, yeah, that was pretty good. We don't need to do it again. That's fine,
Yeah.
But what I thought was cool too is that, like, whenever like McCartney sings or Lennon sings, like, that's their voice. You know what I mean? Like, that's just the way that it is. Like McCartney's range, and how he has that high raspy stuff that he can go low, and that's just, when they're fooling around, none of them are singing off key or flat. You know what I mean? Like, they're all spot on. Like you said, these might get jumbled, but vocally they sound the same all the time. There's consistency is what I was very impressed by that too. They're very consistent all the time.
Yeah. There's a part, and it's in the beginning of 3 where McCartney and Lennon they're singing like this with their teeth clenched through the whole song, and they're doing the harmony the whole song, and they're just looking at each other and smiling. It's funny.
Yeah, that was definitely the thing that struck me too, was they enjoyed each other's company and they had a lot of fun.
Those
and they
two,
were they were very respectful of each other too. All of them,
yeah,
though,
they
no
admired each
yelling.
other.
Yeah, they did. They knew what they had was special.
You could see that. All right, back to the telling your younger self things. All right, so I read that already. Marianne said, join a band and get out playing now while you're young. Don't wait. That's what she would have told her young Marianne self.
Yeah.
Jeffrey said to practice harder and dive into jazz much sooner than I did. You could learn a lot from jazz, because you don't necessarily, it's a little bit more free form. You can kind of get outside of music theory a little bit and uh, put more dissonant stuff in there that necessarily wouldn't work in a
Yeah, and as a
more
drummer,
popular
you're
music.
going to play completely different than you would in a rock band.
Right.
1,000 times
So,
different. They're complete opposites.
yeah, I had a class when I went to college, just called it was called jazz improvisation, and it
Mhm.
was just a bunch of dudes getting in one room and just jamming. That
Right,
was
right.
that was the entire class. So some days there'd be like 10 people there, sometimes there'd be 3 people there.
Yeah.
But it was like there was no structure to it whatsoever. It was just get in, so you plug in and just start playing, whatever.
Jazz Odyssey.
Yes. Um, Okay. Dan Fowler would tell his younger self to buy more guitars.
Yeah, before life takes over and you don't have the funds anymore, right? When you have more important things to spend money on, right? When you're young, spend it up. Buy as much stuff as you can.
Or that you would have all these assets that you can sell in case you
Yeah,
ever.
if you're so inclined.
Yeah. Dennis Rivera, he said, I would tell myself, don't waste 20 years being a punk rock band. I guess he had a bad experience in a punk rock band.
I guess. I don't think it's a waste of time to do anything for 20 years as long as you enjoyed it while you were doing it.
Maybe he didn't enjoy it. That's why.
Maybe not, but he definitely gained some experience from it. In other words, there's something positive that he could take away from that experience if you look for it.
Agreed. Okay. Darren Jones says play because it's therapy and can be
True,
a best friend. Don't do it for anyone else.
right?
Yeah.
Begin the day with a friendly voice.
Nice. Sneaking in a Rush lyric.
Yeah. That's what it's all about, though. It's your friend. Music is your friend. It's not. It's a place you go to, like you said. Like it's a therapeutic, you know, uh, quiet, peaceful zone that you're, in your blissful state. No matter what.
Yeah. Agreed. John Silveira.
Hmm.
Silveira. He said learn keyboard. He would have told his younger self to do that. And I agree with that. And that's another thing. We're going to keep referring to the Beatles thing because it's just so amazing. But the fact that they all can play multiple instruments
Yeah,
is cool.
it is very
And
cool.
and because they're treating it as a job, and they're coming in there and show up 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock in the morning. They're there until 6, 7 o'clock in the evening. And a lot of that day is just there's nothing really happening. So, John will just get back and sit. If Ringo's not behind the kit, he'll just sit back the kit and just start jamming.
Yeah, yeah,
Or, or John will pick up a bass. Um,
yeah.
I
Or
mean,
John or Paul will get behind the kit and start jamming a groove with John,
right.
and Ringo's noodling on the piano. And
Or there's the piano.
yeah, yeah,
I love the fact that they all play multiple instruments. That's really fun. And you kind of learn that. And if you're ever in that environment where you're day in and day out with the same people in the same place and there's all these instruments here, that's what you're going to do. You're just going to goof around and like, oh, let me pick up this guitar and just see if I can noodle with it. And if you do that for years, you're going to get good at that instrument.
right. And if you're amongst like all these talented geniuses that know how all the structures of songs work and what keys work how, and to resolve, and they can kind of guide you. You could, like you said, when you have some downtime, you could be sitting on a piano and teaching yourself and asking them questions and then practicing those things. And it's funny because I think when you're young and you're like, let's say you're a drummer, you're so focused on learning the technique and proper sticking, and there's so much practice to go into developing how the stick works and reacts, to build your chops up and stuff, that it's almost like you wish you had learned keyboard, but at the same time, at that point in life, you say to yourself, do I really want to spend, you know an hour or two a week working on trying to learn an instrument that I don't know anything about, as opposed to putting those hours into my craft and getting that much better at what I do. So I think
Right.
that prohibits people too, because they think like, if you're limited on time, different if, like you said, you have all the time and luxury to work on stuff, that's great. But if you have limited time to practice, do I practice keyboard or do I practice drums? And I'm already a drummer, so you're going to say, I only have an hour this week to practice, or 2 hours I'm going to dedicate it to what I do. And then the
Right.
years go by, and then it's like, I really wish I had to, put some time into it. And
Right.
it's those people that say, you know what, I'm going to find an extra hour somewhere to learn that instrument, and I'm
Right.
going to figure it out on top of what I'm doing,
Right. Paul Smith Jr. might have the comment of the day. I wouldn't tell my younger self anything. I wouldn't want to ruin the journey to where I am or where I'm going.
Bravo.
Right.
Living in the present. See, Steve?
Craig Gill said,
No
hey,
looking
Steve.
back.
Hey, Craig.
What's up, Craig?
Tony's here as well. Yeah, and Donna said, I definitely would tell my younger self to buy that kit and bang away. However, no time like the present, and I'm doing it now. Loving it.
Excellent.
She's multitasking, doing it now and watching the Cover Band Central Wizdumb Hour.
And loving it. She got 3 things going on.
Very props to Donna. All right, so let's get back to the Facebook. Jimmy Sparks also said piano lessons. He would not only noodle on it, he would take lessons, which I never did. I took a piano class in college, and I learned fingering really kind of and chord structure. But most of my keyboard piano knowledge is self-taught.
Yeah.
Bob Shoesmith says, you never know when it'll be your last gig, so take a moment, take in everyone.
Yeah.
Take a moment to yourself and have some gratitude for each one. Don't let them fly by without acknowledging that, basically, is what he's saying. Nate Wall says, you've been having a blast playing for the last decade. In 45 years from now, don't take the next 35 years off this time.
Don't do that.
A very direct message to a younger Nate Wall.
Uh-huh. Who's back playing now, though, so that's all that matters.
That's right. Vince Sema says, warm your fretting hand up before playing and be mindful of overdoing it, or you're going to eventually pay the price with carpal tunnel syndrome. Uh-oh. So that's a good advice, I guess, for younger players too, that if you're playing guitar a lot, to warm your fretting hand up.
Yeah, warm it up.
Warming up is definitely
important. Jump in
for any physical activity.
Yeah.
Elizabeth Ross said, play bass. I only played guitar for years. She said, practice more, learn theory, start a band sooner. She said, I didn't start playing out until my 20s as soloist, 20 plus more years before I started a band. Try to write something every day. She says, I need to still take this advice. I don't make much time for it. And also believe in yourself, be fearless, because she had some confidence issues for years. So good on you, Elizabeth.
Yeah, fear's just an illusion, Steve, like you know.
She's a music teacher in Florida School for the Deaf and the Blind. So good for you, Elizabeth.
Excellent.
Yes, fear is an illusion. It's a lie. It's not true. Hedwig said, I tell myself that no one around here wants to hear us play Leo by Failure, so don't put all this effort into it. That's from Hedwig.
Not Wighead, Hedwig.
And that's not Hedwig from Harry Potter. Is that what Hedwig was?
I don't know.
No, that was I don't even know.
No idea.
Mike Hart said, learn to sing. Don't pass up Lisa's Fuller's offer for singing lessons. Oh, a little plug for
there you go.
Somebody who's a vocal teacher here. Okay.
And, yeah.
He should have put a link there if he really wanted to plug it. But
next time.
Mike Folk, I like that name, said, learn bass and sax. Practice, practice, and practice. Skated by because I had strong voice. Wasted too much time acting like a pop star jerk off. Took being in shape way too lightly, would have paid more attention to diet and exercise, would have drank less and smoked less weed, although this was common practice at the time, paid more attention to the business end. So again, another person that has a lot of advice for his younger self.
But sounds like he had a pretty good time.
It does.
You know,
stoned and
maybe
drunk and
yeah, maybe if you heeded that advice, you wouldn't have had such a a colorful, experience as a young musician,
right. He was just partying his ass
right?
off
Yeah,
and having a good time. So, yeah,
and listen, the good news is he can do all those things now, right?
can.
Smoke less weed, don't drink, get in shape, eat good,
Yeah.
enjoy yourself.
It's like a Jersey
Never too
guy
late,
on the
man,
bridge.
never too late.
That's right. Nick Beatles, not Beatles, but Beatles,
Okay,
said, I took 15 years off from playing music and wished I wouldn't have. So feel you on that. My music path has kind of pivoted into a tech role. I still play out, but I've had some super awesome experiences as a stagehand and audio tech. Oh my goodness. I feel that if I would have gotten into that younger in life, I could have had even more and better experiences. So I would tell my younger self to go all in on that. I almost went to
okay.
college for sound engineering, but decided to go for accounting instead. Now I'm learning to be an engineer at 40 and then finish my accounting degree. Good. Well, Nick, you know what? You're
You're
still
not
young,
Yeah, you're not even
40.
halfway through life, you're fine.
You got plenty of time.
And he's still the
Rock.
youngest he's ever gonna be, so
That's right. I like how Christina, who wrote this, again, she is the single most active
yep,
person in the Cover Band Center group. She came up with this post, and she is also participating in people's comments and responding and engaging. So
excellent.
she's a rock star in the
Yeah,
group.
she sure is.
Thomas Fageld says, "You love guitar, learn to sing and play keys."
So it sounds like a lot of these all have a common thread where people wish they had practiced more, wish they had done something in addition to the instrument that they mainly play, right? Their main instrument, wish they had done another instrument of sorts or learned something or learned how to sing or took someone's advice to take singing lessons, and it's all great advice. But like you said, it would have potentially put them on a different path than they are now, good, bad, or indifferent, right? But it's never too late to do these things, right? Because, like you said, within a couple of years' time, you can be proficient at almost anything if you really put your mind to it.
Right,
So, that would be my advice to everyone's current and present self. Take some of the things that you wish that you had done and pick out the things that you really wish you had. Let's say you pick 5 or 6 things. I wish I had done these, this, but pick one of those that you're really passionate about and have maybe some regret that you didn't pursue,
right.
and start now. You
Start
know,
now.
it's
Why
going to be
not?
5 years from now in the blink of an eye. You know what I mean? So, like you said,
Right,
procrastinate and be status quo, or move forward every day and grow as a person. You know,
right. Um, Yeah, I don't know. Craig isn't really saying he was telling his younger self this, but he's saying the music business really is a people business, not so much a who you know, but more of who knows you. The best
mm,
gigs go to individuals who are good musicians, not necessarily great, but who are a great hang. Just good people. Yeah, be cool to everybody. We Tony
absolutely.
and I talk about this all the time, and it's definitely some of the most
Right. You may
one of the
be
most
vying
important
for a
things.
gig with another guy who's a little more talented than you, sings, maybe you don't, or has a better voice than you do, but he's a dick and you're cool. The band's going to probably pick you.
Yeah. Can you
Unless
get
it's
the job
unless,
done? Yeah,
right. Unless listen, like people find like people, right?
true.
If you're a dick, you'll find a band with a bunch of dicks in it.
It
Really,
probably won't last too long.
right. And if you're a good person, you're going to find band with good people in it.
Right. Um,
But remember, Steve,
Lee,
you can still be a good person and be in a band with this one or two dicks, maybe only one dick.
yes,
Never
I've
can
been there.
tell. Me too.
Lee Wilkerson said drugs later in your career and not
Yeah,
early in your
that might have
career.
spoiled the fun early on, though, for him too.
True. Uh, Rick Anderson gives a cautionary advice to his younger self: be careful of people who call themselves friends who may stab you in the back later.
Mm.
Um, MC O'Brien skipped the budget divisions of popular bands, Squire, Epiphone, Sigma, etc., and go straight for the real thing. Well, some Squires are really good guitars.
Yeah.
Some Epiphones are really good guitars. So that's not necessarily, play the
Remember,
guitar.
it's the Indian, not the arrow.
Wow. Okay. I never heard that one before, but I get
Sure.
it.
What that means is like a skilled Indian, with a bow and an arrow can shoot a crooked stick straight
Sure.
and hit the bullseye. And an inexperienced bowman or someone who's not as talented can have the best equipment with the straightest arrows and still not hit the target, you know? So if you're talented, you can make anything sound good.
Agreed.
You heard it here first, guys. It's the Indian, not the arrow.
Steve Lockridge says, believe in yourself and give it 100%. Then you have a chance to make it to the big time. Doubting yourself is a career killer. That's certainly true.
Sure
We
is.
definitely need to have confidence. It takes a lot of balls to do what we do. Glenn went right for the Beatles. Never date a girl named Yoko. But that was a joke because his younger self did not date a girl named Yoko, I'm guessing.
Right. Maybe he did. You never know. Maybe there's another Yoko out there.
Well, I'm sure there's many Yokos.
But maybe he dated one. You don't know.
I think he was going for the joke.
He should elaborate on that, I think, but okay.
This guy, Roland, would want to tell his younger self stuff that he knows is going to happen in the future. He says, sing because you're going to get in an automobile wreck when you're 29 and crush your vocal cords to the point of never being able to sing again and have to depend on others for your success. That is horrible, Roland. Feel for you.
Yeah.
But that's the way he would want to go. Tell his, well, if he knew that, if he could go back and tell his former self, then he could tell his former self,
right, don't drive that day.
Don't get in the car,
right,
or whatever.
Yeah, whatever. Correct, but
make a different turn.
Hey, but persevere, Roland. Right? I mean, life goes on. Right? We got to navigate, figure it out.
Right. Nick Brent said, simply learn to count. What's the one piece of advice?
Yeah, that's good advice.
Mark Gregg just said, I would say you did good, son.
Okay.
So he would give his younger self some reassurance.
Some encouragement. Tell him he did a good job.
Yes. Lawrence says, be nicer to people. So I guess Lawrence wasn't nice to people before.
Hopefully he's nice now.
Yep. Ron said, enjoy the moments. Things will never be perfect, and it all goes by. Indeed it does. Yeah, a lot. I think that's a common thing that older people would tell their younger self, that, it's going to be done just like that before you know it. So really,
right. Don't take it for granted, right? Like when you're there, like you said, enjoy it, be present to it. Try to record as much as you can, Right. That would be my advice to not my younger self, but to anyone out there that's younger and in a band, just try to get memorialized as much as you can, so that 20 years from now, you have things that you can go back to, video and audio and reference, and say, hey, this is pretty cool. Because like you said, when you're writing an original album, when you're in the midst of doing it and you're touring it and you're, it's a little bit of a grind and you're enjoying it, but then 20 years later, when you look back and you listen to it, if you haven't listened to it in a while, you think like, wow, that was really, like we did good, Agreed. My buddy Daley Thomas in South Carolina says, not everyone is as dedicated to you as you. And no matter how hard you try, you can't motivate everyone. Not everyone wants it as bad as you. Learn to write songs. Yeah. That's what Daley would have told his younger self, a young Daley Thomas. That's true, right? At the end of the day, if you're in a band and you're just 5 people and 2 are super motivated and 3 aren't, it's going to be a point where there's going to have to be a conversation, or it's going to implode, or something's going to happen, right? Because you're not all on the same page. And though 2 that are driven are going to be constrained by the ones that aren't. And right. In reality, you're in charge of your own destiny in the music world, right? So you have to, you got to persevere and push forward. And you got to, if you have people holding you back, it's tough decisions sometimes, but sometimes you got to move on for your own self-preservation and success. Right. We have time for a couple more on Facebook. Ryan Jennings said, only put your heart and soul into projects that you legally own. There's a big difference between hired gun and ownership. Mm-hmm. There is. And learning the business, learning the legal part of it is, I think for me, that's something I would tell my younger self. Even though I did learn some of it pretty young, I would tell my younger self to learn much more about the legalities of Hmm.
things. Not that I've had any real issues with it. I would just want that's knowledge I would want to have young.
Yeah, well, I remember early on Ron Beanstalk, famous attorney to tons of bands and artists. That was one of the things that he told us early on because I was friends with him, and he said, as soon as you have songs written and recorded, copyright them immediately. File for copyright so that you own them.
Right. Right. So oops, I lost my pitch. Randy Atkins said learn to count to 4 and remember to leave it in your pants. So perhaps he had some problems with sexual promiscuity.
Potentially.
Robert Machino, hang out with people that are better than you. Learn every minute. Yep.
Yep.
Said that earlier. Tim, our buddy Tim says, play in a band. Always. I wish I had been more proactive with that, especially in my teens and 20s. Now at my age, I'm having medical issues and it's taken me a while to come back into it. I took it for granted and I really regret that. So, yeah, it's something that I was fortunate to do, and you as well, playing in bands a lot.
Yeah. And never took it for granted, but you always think like, I'll just do this forever, And
Right.
like you said, there will come a point where, your physical limitations may hinder your ability to be at the play at the top of your game.
Right. My friend Clark here, a great bass player, a great singer too, said I'd say to start gigging as much as possible to my young self. And Stacy said start sooner. Dean Bibb said work harder on your picking hand. You do not have to use it so much motion to pick through patterns. Less is truly is more.
Yep.
I learned that too, and I'm sure you have playing drums too. Economy of motion, especially playing long.
Oh yeah,
gigs.
A whole nother podcast we could talk about that.
Right.
Sure.
And maybe we'll end it with Fritz Kalin's. What he would tell his younger self is enjoy the journey, the ups and downs, all a part of the ride.
Yeah.
And it is. You have to have ups and you can't have down or up without down.
Great comments tonight, man. That was great combo.
Yes.
A lot of good answers there,
Yeah. And it's a good exercise, I think, for for people to do to reflect and then to really kind of make some different changes in the now and see what you can how you can affect your future, because any decisions you make now will affect whatever.
Yeah, and you're not bound to that 20-something-year-old, younger self. The things that you wish you had done then, you can still do now for the most part, unless you have physical limitations that would prevent you from doing it, right? But if you have the desire to learn something new, the mind is an amazing thing where, we double our knowledge every 10 years. So think about that, everything in every 10 years exponentially gets increased by, twofold. So,
yeah,
incredible.
Some of it leaks out too. Like
Yeah, but it has to make room for the new. Out with the old, in with the new. Stuff that leaks out is like, you didn't need it in the bucket.
Right. Yeah. Sometimes the bucket is
The bucket's filled to the top. You got to dump a little out to make room.
It can only hold so much.
That's right.
All right.
Need a bigger bucket. But great stuff, man. Good. All, again, great commentary, positive stuff, all good things. But I would just leave off by saying no regrets, man. Like you said,
no regrets.
We all got here on the journey we took, on the path that we chose,
Yes.
and we're here now. So just,
yes.
Do the best you can to make it better.
Yes. So a good way to make it better is to go sign up on the website, coverbandcentral.com. You can sign up for a profile for you, your band, or both. It is free, and it will always be free. It's always being improved there too. If you'd like to make a donation, it is the season of giving. PayPal.me/coverbandcentral.
Certainly is
a place to do it. That's our tip jar. Drop a buck or two in there if you'd like. We sure do appreciate everything. And any comments, questions can be directed at me. Even if it's for Tony, you can tell me. I'll tell him.
Yep.
Steve@coverbandcentral.com. It's the season to be jolly. Fa la 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 la.
Ho ho ho, Stevie.
Yes. Where's my thing? Oh, everybody have a great
year, baby.
Yes. Enjoy it. Everybody have a great week. Be safe out there, and we will see you next week.